Hey, Snohomish County. Hey, we're back with the podcast. I got a really, I think, interesting guest today that I think the community is going to get a lot of value out of. We are here to talk about everything drug-related in Snohomish County. We've got a lot of information to get out to the community. And the reason we did this today, or I wanted to do this today, it is in the top 3 of questions I get when I'm out in the community. So I have some connections in this area since I became sheriff, and that's where Commander Jay Baines comes in. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Adam. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I came into office in 2020. We worked through some changes, a couple tough years, and your position came open in 2021.
Yes, sir.
So you retired from the Everett Police Department after 31 years of service, which is fantastic, and decided you want to kind of finish your career at the Snohomish Regional Drug Task Force. We just debated what that acronym stands for, but the Drug Task Force. And we're just here to talk about it a little bit today, talk about a little bit about your history. I think in getting to know you fairly well over the last year and a half, I don't think a lot of our community even knows what goes on out there. We're going to talk about fentanyl. I get a lot of questions about fentanyl, and we're going to talk about all that today. So I hope you'll stick around for this. But Jay, let's start with you. A little bit about yourself. So you've been the task force commander since the middle of 2021. You took it over from there. You kind of hit the ground running. You had some time there anyway as a sergeant with the Everett Police Department. But kind of tell us a little bit about your history.
Sure. Adam hired me in June of 2021, took over the Drug Task Force as the commander. I had spent 15 years there prior to that as a sergeant with the Everett Police Department. And then, like Adam said, 31 years with Everett total, retired and took that job over. I've been there ever since.
I really like people's personal stories and stuff. We won't get too personal, don't worry. But there's a unique part of your history that I'm interested in. I'm former Navy. I did my time in the Navy. You came from the military, but what's unique about your military experience?
Yeah, so I kind of grew up in Missoula, Montana, working at a plywood mill, and decided to join the United States Marine Corps. Got into the Marine Corps, went in as a military policeman, did fairly well at the MP school, and got selected for Marine One, presidential security, had security for Marine One during a couple presidencies during Carter and Reagan. Spent my 4 years there, got out, went back home to Missoula, took my job back out the mill, was married at the time, had a couple kids. Decided that, I just was going to really look at law enforcement as a career. I was kind of just bouncing around, but then I ended up going back into the Air Force as an air traffic controller. Spent a couple years active duty in the Air Force, and then started doing my one weekend out of the month in Spokane at Fairchild Air Force Base. Eventually got hired in 1990 with Everett, and this has been my home ever since.
Awesome. Well, thank you for all your years of service, both military and with the Everett Police Department, and now it's continuing on in Snohomish County with the Drug Task Force. So that's awesome, and thank you. So I want to talk a little bit about the task force. Like I said, I think a lot of our community probably doesn't even know that it exists. And a lot of it we're not going to talk about just because of the fact of the work you do. But I want them to know kind of what the makeup is, who supports it, who sends detectives to you, and how does that what's the framework of the task force?
Yeah, so like you said, I'm the commander of the unit. I have a lieutenant that's from the sheriff's office. I have 3 sergeants, one from Linwood, one from Everett, and one from the sheriff's office. And then we have about 5 detectives from the sheriff's office, 5 detectives from Everett. We make up the majority. The sheriff's office and the city of Everett make up the majority of the task force. But then we pull from smaller agencies. We have WSP detective there. We have a DOC guy there. We have ATF. We have DEA. We're supported by the federal government part of it. We'll pull from Marysville, we'll pull from Arlington, wherever we can get a body. And right now, as you know, having personnel on the street is tough. So getting people in my unit is not a huge priority right now, but we're going to continue to work on that and pull from other smaller agencies.
Yeah, so staffing law enforcement wide in this entire state, not just this county, is extremely difficult. But when we were going through the hiring process, I think we both agreed that how critical it was to keeping the task force up and running, because there has been talk about people pulling detectives, and a couple have been pulled. Yes, but we are still, correct me if I'm wrong, but the largest drug task force in the state of Washington?
We are, yeah, we're the largest drug task force in the state of Washington.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And then we even have, is there someone from the post office that
Yeah,
is part of that?
we just got a United States Postal Service agent in our unit, which has been a huge asset for us. A lot of the narcotics are moving through the mail.
Okay. And so I want to talk a little bit about what you guys do, because like I said, I don't think a lot of people know. And like when I grew up at the sheriff's office, working the streets, we do street level stuff all the time. Mm-hmm. We come across drugs. Most of it is when you're talking big picture, I would call that small quantities and things like that. Mm-hmm. That's not what you guys do though. You guys are in a whole different level than that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say that for sure. I mean, we start oftentimes with a smaller level drug dealer, and then we work our way up. We're funded by the federal government, so we're mandated through our drug task force to focus on mid to upper level drug dealers, and mainly cartel people run across our radar a lot. So we work our way up the chain, and we try to get to the higher levels, people that are dealing in multiple ounces, pounds, kilos, that sort of thing, usually coming straight from the border from Mexico.
So, a couple things. So your long-term investigations is what you guys do. They could go on for even over a year.
Yeah, we've had cases that run out 4 or 5 years sometimes.
Okay,
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about one of the unique things that I think you guys do. We talked just briefly before we went on air here. Do you guys ever get involved with homicide investigations, anything like that?
We do. We kind of pick and choose which ones we do. As possession of controlled substance homicide investigations, we'll usually, we'll take a good look at the cases. If it involves a juvenile, we'll certainly look at those really hard, and we'll usually do that investigation working backwards. So we'll have a homicide with a controlled substance, and we'll work that case backwards and try to find where the source of that pill or that heroin or that illicit drug came from.
I think it's important for the community to know that. So it's not something that you guys are doing every day. You're not a homicide unit or anything like that. But if drugs are involved in it, or I should say the cause of death of someone in our community, that's something that you have the detectives available to look into that. Is
Absolutely.
that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had some success with that. We've prosecuted 2 of them, and we're currently doing another investigation right now as we speak.
So the other thing that you mentioned that caught my attention is you mentioned the word cartel. And from community members out there, they're probably thinking there's no cartels in Snohomish County. They don't go through here, right? Things like that. That's not the world that you know from your experience, though. From what you are able to talk about cartel activity within Snohomish County.
Yeah, you bet. Most all of our investigations, I would say probably 80% of them lead to the cartel. It's no secret that most of the drugs come across the border from Mexico, and there is a huge contingent of cartel in Snohomish County and Washington, and frankly throughout the United States. And our investigations oftentimes leads us to those folks.
So so we're talking, Snohomish County specific, but you guys branch way further out than that, right? Your investigations can almost literally take you anywhere. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that's got a nexus to Snohomish County, we'll investigate that drug investigation. And if it leads us to California, Arizona, Georgia, we'll follow it up and we'll stay with it. And that's frankly why we partner with our DEA and FBI agents, because they give us that federal latitude to go into other states and do our investigations.
All right, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. Another very question I get often out in the community, or we hear on the news almost on a nightly basis anymore, the word fentanyl. What is it? How is it used? Is it prevalent in Snohomish County? So let's talk about fentanyl for just a couple minutes so the community can have a better understanding of both what it is, how it's used, and the dangers about it.
Sure. Back in early 2000s, OxyContin was kind of the drug of choice for kids, and it was a prescription pill, and the pharmaceutical company reformatted that so they could no longer smoke it, and fentanyl, powdered fentanyl, pure fentanyl, has taken over, and it comes from China, comes from India, and usually the pills are made either in China or Mexico, and they're transported up here in various ways. And now, because you can smoke those pills or you can crush them up and snort them, it is really the drug of choice for the addict who used to do heroin or was on Oxycontin. And so now it is the drug of choice for most people, and it's frankly all over the world, not just in the United States, but it is prevalent throughout the world.
So when people use the term or hear the term M30s, that's what they're talking about?
Yeah, so M30s, they're counterfeit M30s. They've been made in a clandestine lab, and they've put fentanyl in there with other cutting agents. And just to give you an example, 2 milligrams of fentanyl is a lethal dose. So they try to put 2 milligrams of fentanyl in each pill, but because they make it up in a clandestine lab, there's no quality control over it. And I kind of use the analogy of making a chocolate chip cookie. Ideally you'd want to put maybe 7 chocolate chips in a cookie, but when you go and bake it, it comes out and you've got maybe 12, 13 chips in that cookie. It's the same thing with these pills. You never know what you're going to get. So the margin of error is so extreme that you could get high or you could die. You don't know what you're going to get. And if you've got 7 milligrams of fentanyl in one pill, that's a lethal dose, and that could kill pretty much anybody.
So with your experience, would you say, I don't know if you're a juvenile or it doesn't matter if you're a juvenile or an adult, and you're getting one of these pills anywhere from outside a prescription from a doctor, you're taking a chance. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. And just to give you a visual on that, like 1 milligram is like a grain of salt. So imagine, that you're trying to mix that up in one pill. And the other thing that I think is important, that there's also counterfeit Adderall and counterfeit Xanax. And so, it is not uncommon for high school or college students to take an Adderall, and maybe they got it from a friend, but if they don't know where that Adderall or Xanax is coming from, if they can't verify that it's from a prescription or from a pharmaceutical company and it's a counterfeit Adderall, most of these pills, Adderall and Xanax that are counterfeit, have some amount of fentanyl in them. And so I think it's really important for the public to know, and for the young adults to know, that if you're taking a counterfeit Xanax or Adderall out there to get you through a night of studying for your final exam, that pill could kill you. And it's really that simple. And I never really, I just never really thought about it before. But, in the last 5 or 6 years, it's been coming to the forefront that this is a real issue.
Oh, it's here. It's every day I'm getting these questions. Yeah. I mean, and like I said, we see it in the media and things like that. Yeah. So we're talking about the M30s and the pills and things like that. Just out of curiosity, what's something like that cost on the street right now?
It depends.
And it varies, I'm sure.
It varies from region to region, but typically it's about $7 a pill in this area, $6 to $7.
Okay.
Yeah. Fairly inexpensive.
And I know fentanyl seems to be like the forefront right now. Back when I was a patrol sergeant, it was the opioid epidemic, which is all related. Yeah. But heroin was the big thing. Yeah. Is heroin still a thing out there?
Yeah, heroin's still a big thing. Back in the day when we were working the road, Adam, it was crack cocaine at the time, and then it finally went to meth, because cocaine was so expensive, and then it went to meth. But back in the day, you didn't really hear a lot about heroin addicts. They kind of kept to themselves, and it was just the explosion of the Oxycontin that really blew this up. And now with the M30s, it's an epidemic.
Absolutely,
it's an epidemic, and it's killing kids. We had, since the first of the year, we've had 68 overdose deaths in Snohomish County. 37 of those have been fentanyl related.
Goodness great.
Yeah, in 3.5 months.
Okay, and on that note, people are going to wonder, well, we're law enforcement, we're public safety, what are you guys doing about it? I just want to make sure the community understands that we've worked really hard to keep this task force together. Yeah. And I want to make it clear that this is not street level work. I've already said that once, but I want to repeat it. And that if you guys aren't here doing the work that you're doing, and you recover a lot of drugs off the street of Snohomish County, we're not talking 100 pills, we're talking 100,000 pills. That's the type of cases you do. But if you guys aren't doing your work, this work is not getting done. I can tell you that right now. There's staffing crisis all over the state of Washington, and it's not like if you guys went away, we're going to just all of a sudden start up another unit. It just doesn't work that way with human beings, right? So I just want to make sure that's clear with the community, the type of work you guys are doing. No one else is doing it.
Yeah.
We need you guys here.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, in 1988, like I said, we established the Snohomish Regional Drug Task Force, and I know you and Chief Templeman, Chief Nelson from Linwood, very, very committed to this unit. And you know, like you said, if we weren't doing this, nobody else would be doing it. And I kind of equate it to kind of a bit of a football game, and we're the referee. You know, we see a foul, you know, we throw a flag, right? And we're trying to keep a lid on it, but there is a lot of drugs out there, and there's a lot of work to do. And you know, we're going to continue to do that and do really quality investigations for the community.
Okay, so Jay, we've talked a lot about fentanyl pills and stuff like that. Something I think it's important for especially the parents at home, not just parents, but the entire community. What are some indicators of drug use in kids that parents that we're just not familiar with this? What could they be on the lookout for?
Sure. One of the common ways of using fentanyl pills is to smoke it. And so the way they smoke it is they'll put it on a piece of tin foil, you know, about a 6-inch piece of tin foil, and they'll put some sort of heat source on the bottom of it, and they'll use either a glass or plastic tube, and then they'll inhale it through their mouth. And so parents should be looking for a roll of aluminum foil in their house, burnt aluminum foil that's got black marks on it. And obviously, you know, if they're doing heroin or something like that, syringes are something they want to look for. That would obviously be pretty obvious for them. But that is for sure is what they should be looking for is aluminum foil.
So say if there's a parent out there in our community and they might have some suspicion and they find in their kid's backpack both a new roll of foil and some old foil. If the foil has black marks on it, it's not from the barbecue. Are you safe and say, I mean, I remember when this first hit the street and foil it was all of a sudden everywhere. It happened, it seemed like overnight. Yeah. But would it be worth a follow-up question from parents if they find something like that?
100%. No doubt about it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We've talked a little bit about kids and how we can protect them and what to look for. What are some names that kids are using for this stuff? Yeah,
they're usually like when they're texting their friends or whatever, they'll say blues, M's, 30s. Those are the common names that they would be, asking for prescription or for the M30s from they're from their dealer.
Is there any way to tell the difference between a legitimate prescription pill from your doctor and the street stuff that we're talking about?
No, they're pretty much identical. It's really tough to tell.
All right.
Yeah.
So something important, and my goal is not to get political with this thing. I mentioned to you I want to kind of talk about the Blake decision.
Yeah.
But I don't want to bash anybody. The legislature's working on it. I trust that they're going to take care of this thing in the near future. But what if the impacts, and the Blake decision, if the community doesn't know, is a Supreme Court decision in 2021 early on that declared our drug laws basically unconstitutional. That's a very brief version of it. And we're working through that. The legislature corrected it to a certain extent. But I don't want to talk about that part of it. I want to talk about from that decision and what we're trying to work out with the legislature, what have you seen at the real life impacts for people?
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times that I've spoke to addicts and heard it on the news, heard it on the radio, that basically what it is 3 strikes and you're out. You can be in possession of controlled substance 3 times before you have to face a criminal charge on that. And addicts will tell you, recovered addicts will tell you that if that law was in effect when they were doing their drugs, that they would either be dead or they'd still be doing drugs, because basically there's no penalty for them and they can do it 3 times before anybody charges them with anything. And it's a real shame. And I think it's unbelievable that they can't get help when they need it.
It is, and it's just something that, we see the worst side of this. I think you do definitely. Patrol does as well, and it's not a we want to lock everybody up thing. It's truly not. Yeah. I mean, I kind of know you on a personal level, and I think both of us, we just want to see people get cured from this if possible. And we were talking, sometimes that's a long process for people, and people relapse, and that's okay. Yeah. But when you remove a component of, I would call it accountability, you're removing a chance for that human being to kind of change course. Yeah. Is that fair, you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it takes about, on an average, 9 times to go through rehab for an opiate addiction before you can become clean. And these addicts will tell you if they were locked up and they had an opportunity to detox, 3 or 4 times, that it would help them succeed and get clean. But now the fact that we don't even charge them. We contact somebody with controlled substance. We write a piece of paper, we let them go. Contact them again, write a piece of paper, let them go. This happens over and over again, and they don't have an opportunity to go and get locked up and get clean. And there's no incentive for them. And the law, I think, has really affected the human side of it more than anything. And it's not about us. It's not about law enforcement wanting to lock somebody up. It's about helping them out there.
It's not. I prefer people get the help. I truly don't care about the charge or anything else. It's about, getting people help in our community, because like I said, we see the worst of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
People strung out, we call that on the nod, with heroin. Yeah. It's horrible to see that. And it's just, when you remove that accountability component, it's just one more chance. It's just one more chance to get that person some help. Yeah. At least, and I know there's different varying opinions out there, and they're all honorable and respectful, but it's just, you remove that accountability component, it's just a chance for that person. That's the way I see it, an opportunity, a chance. But anyway, so thank you for being here today, but I want to end on kind of a fun note. I think it's fun. So when I first met you, you were a dog handler with the Everett Police Department. I had just got into K-9, so I kind of looked up to you because you had been doing it quite a while. I was the brand new guy, and as everybody knows, there's a long learning curve to the world of K-9. But so we bring that kind of similar history, if you will. Yeah. And then so I kind of changed positions in the last few years. Then I hire you as the task force commander. And one of the things is I tried to revamp our K-9 unit here because I'm super passionate about it, and I think it's a great service to the community. You've brought that to the task force in the form of, I want to make sure I get a currency dog. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
So I had never heard of that before you brought it to me, and you're like, hey, Adam, I kind of want to try this thing. We're not sure. There's 2 others on the entire West Coast, but we want to be the 3rd. Just tell me a little bit about that. And I think the community is going to get a kick out of the name of the dog that you guys chose.
Yeah, so we named the dog Cash, which I think is appropriate.
Absolutely.
He's a German short-haired pointer. We got him in San Francisco from a breeder down there. Our handler also runs a narcotics dog, and I approached him with the idea and said, hey, I'd like to try this currency dog. And he's like, I'm all about it, let's do it. And so we put our feelers out, started looking for a dog, and we found the one that we wanted, and went down to San Francisco, surveyed it. We purchased it, brought it home, trained it up, and we recently just found $10,000 behind a light switch in a wall. So we're looking forward to using it more and more down the road. Word's going to get out, and I think kind of traveling around the state, using the dog a lot. So
that is
looking
so. I love trying new things like that.
Yeah, no,
I think it's
awesome.
going to be super successful and get used a lot. And you gave a really good example. It's because you guys are dealing with. We come from the world of K-9, and I always said human beings, when they want to hide, they can get in some really good hiding spots.
Yep.
But then money, they can hide that anywhere, and sometimes we need the help of a dog.
Yeah.
So it's already working. He's already had a find.
It is. He's already had a find, and I think there's going to be a lot more down the road for him. So we're excited about it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Jay, thank you for being here. Congrats. It's not a new spot so much anymore, but I really appreciate the work you're doing. I appreciate your service both to the city of Everett and our country in the form of 2 military branches. So thank you for that, and thank you for just your willingness kind of in this day and age in public safety where it's not always comfortable to be in public safety, but you're like, no, I'll take this on. I'm ready to go. So thank you for that, and thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate your support from the Sheriff's Office. It's been awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks again.
Thanks.